Jasmine Warga is a Jordanian-American author whose middle grade book, Other Words for Home, about the journey of a 12-year-old Syrian refugee, hit the New York Times bestseller list and has earned multiple awards, including the esteemed John Newbery Honor. She is also the author of 2 young adult books, which has been translated into over 25 different languages. What is Other Words from Home about?
The book is about a 12-year-old girl named Jude who, due to the growing conflict in her home country of Syria, is forced to move across the Atlantic Ocean with her mother, leaving her dad and her brother back in Syria. And they resettle in Cincinnati, Ohio, where her uncle has been living for some time. Her uncle is settled in Cincinnati, working as a doctor, married to an American woman, and has a daughter who's about Jude's age. So Jude and her mom move in with them. And the book is about sort of the struggles and the joys of starting this new life in this new place in America, and is inspired sort of by the resilience and bravery and heart of all of these kids that we see in the U.S. who come here kind of not out of a choice but out of necessity, and how they piece together a life here.
Abdi Ifton is from Somalia. He was only 6 years old when civil war broke out in his country in 1991. When the radical Islamist group Al-Shabaab rose to power in 2006 in Somalia, it became dangerous to celebrate Western culture. But because Abdi had taught himself English, he secretly filed stories for NPR under penalty of death. He stayed in Somalia until he had no choice but to flee to Kenya in 2011. In 2015, he won the visa lottery and immigrated to America. Abdi is currently a student at Boston College, majoring in political science. He is also the author of the memoir, Call Me American, published in June 2018. Abdi just became a citizen on January 17th, 2020. You were doing interviews on NPR radio, which is in English. How did you get on the radio? What were the interviews about?
So there was one American reporter who risked his life to come to Mogadishu when Mogadishu was in flames. And I happened to be the right time, the right place. And I was walking on this neighborhood looking for my own mother because I couldn't find her for 3 days. And here was Paul Salopek, who's an American journalist, taking pictures of the city. And once I realized there's this white guy and I have learned English from watching movies, and it was time to practice my English and see if he's going to understand my stories. That way, Paul Salopek, who gathered my stories and published my story, and then NPR found those stories, and they realized we really need this man and his voice because he's in Mogadishu and he's taking risks telling his story, and that is what the world needed at the time, and that's how my story got on air. I was only motivated with the fact that I got accepted sending my stories for free, that a whole community, a whole country might be able to listen to my voice. That was more, to me, like, even if I die tomorrow, you know, my voice is out there and people might probably be talking about me. Mm-hmm. That was one thing that really kept me thinking I have got this opportunity which not many young refugees don't have.
Ernesto Cisneros is the author of Efren Divided, which has been described as a love letter to children of families torn apart by deportation. The award-winning story has been named Best Middle Grade Book of 2020 by numerous literary organizations. And what makes this more amazing is this is the veteran teacher's first published work. What is Efren Divided about?
It's a story about a 12-year-old boy whose life is turned upside down when his mom is deported, and he's left fending for himself and for his little brother and sisters, Max and Mia, in hopes that his mom will somehow be able to come back to him. And so he's pretty much taking care of his siblings, which is something that I've seen throughout my years teaching. I see it all the time.
So is that where you got the inspiration for writing about this, or did this come from your own history and your own biography?
Yes and no. So yes, I come from a family of immigrants, and so the whole experience is nothing new to me. However, it was during actually the 2016 elections, and it felt like hate was given a national platform. There were so many negative things being said about specifically Latinos at the time, and I know as a child I internalized everything that I used to hear, and I didn't want my students or my own children to internalize these same things. So I decided to write a story that would actually encompass and embrace the beauty of our culture and to focus on everything that they should be proud of. And so that's how the story came to be. I wanted to send a message to those kids that there's allies out there, there's people they can turn to, so that they're not alone.
Angela Cervantes is the Mexican-American author of several award-winning middle-grade novels, including Letty Out Loud, Gabby Lost and Found, and Coco, the junior novel that accompanied the blockbuster Disney Pixar movie.
Letty Out Loud is my latest book. It goes back to Gabby Lost and Found with the animal shelter. and her story is a little different from Gabby. She's from Tlaquepaque, Mexico. And she is an ESL student, which means an English as a second language. And she is just trying to prove to everyone that she can speak English, write English as well as everyone else. It was inspired by all the many English ESL students I met in my school visit. I always ask for a reader to come up and read with me. And so many times, just by luck, I'll pick a student that I didn't know was an ESL student that was only been speaking English for 2 years. And then after this visit is over, these teachers or librarians will come up crying, going, oh my God, you don't realize you picked Tariq. Tariq's only been speaking English for a year. And to see him up there reading in front of all his friends was just amazing. So I was just so inspired by their bravery, their courageousness. You know, we so often look at people who don't speak English, or if we have a slight little accent, that we're somehow intellectually deficient, when that's the absolute opposite is true. These are kids who can speak 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 languages where they come from.
Jamil Jan Kochai is based in California, but he originally hails from Logar, Afghanistan, although he was born in a refugee camp in Pakistan. His debut novel, 99 Nights in Logar, was a finalist for the PEN Hemingway Award for Debut Novel and the DSC Prize for South Asian Literature.
99 Nights in Logar, essentially, it starts off sort of as this adventure tale. It's about this young pack of boys in Logar, Afghanistan, which is in the countryside just south of Kabul, our country's capital. And one day their guard dog gets lost in the village, and it's up to this young group of boys to then go after this guard dog. Along the way, though, I think, you know, the story is sort of, it shifts in terms of form and genre, and it becomes much more about storytelling and layers of storytelling and the history of the country and of this particular village itself. I think one of my main intentions with this book especially was to show the ways that the war on terror and, you know, the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, especially the tremendous violence and the terrible effects it's had on these very innocent people in Afghanistan.
Haley Taylor Schlitz is a law student, a daughter, a sister, a descendant of immigrants from Africa and Europe, and she is only 17 years old. Haley has already graduated with a degree in education and just started law school at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. She and her mother co-authored the book titled The Homeschool Alternative, incorporating a homeschool mindset for the benefit of Black children in America.
Even if you can't homeschool your child, you can have a homeschool mindset. And so that's basically where you see every opportunity as a learning opportunity for your student. And so when you're at the store, for example, and there's a sale for pens and it's 50% off or whatever, there's one packet of pens that has 5 pens and another one that has 1 pen in it, you're gonna ask your student, or your child in this case, well, which one's the better deal? And things like that is like a homeschool mindset where like school is everywhere, learning is everywhere.
Hey Brad Squad, Jonathan Elias here with Salua Eveline, the certified business coach, marketing expert, and author of the recently published book, The Stories of Immigrant Women, Entrepreneurs in the United States of America.
The book idea came in and I did this whole book while I was on the road. So I ran my business as a coach and I worked on the book who just been published, Stories of Immigrant Women Entrepreneurs. And in there, you have women from, I think, 22 countries living in 10 different states in the US and representing 5 different continents.
We have been invited by cookbook author Leah Koenig into her kitchen. Her latest release, The Jewish Cookbook, was named a Best New Cookbook of Fall 2019 by Food and Wine, Eater, The Kitchen, and Forbes. Now, Leah specializes in Jewish cuisines from all over the world, and I cannot wait to go and meet her inside to eat some latkes.
This recipe comes from the Jewish Cookbook, which was my most recent cookbook. I try really hard when I'm developing recipes to kind of get the balance just right so that anybody at home can recreate them. But I'm also really lucky because I live in Kensington, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. Well, it's right next to Borough Park, so we're right next to a very Orthodox Jewish world. There's a large Bangladeshi South Asian community and a Pakistani community. So the food shopping, it's kind of like the best of both worlds because I can find kosher cheese and I can also have access to just beautiful spices and produce just at like the 24-hour bodegas and fruit markets nearby. So it's awesome.
Well, this scholar style of cooking was handed down from 3 generations. My grandmother, my mother, and my aunt. I mean, that's how I became a great cook, because I think I'm a great cook. I'm an author of a cookbook. The name of the cookbook is Gullah Cuisine by Land and by Sea. With the collars, I like to use a little smoked meat. That's the Gullah style. We prepare collars with smoked neck bone and ham hock, and sometimes they throw a little pigtails in it. I usually take the greens and I usually turn it like this, roll it like a little bit, turn it like this, like this. When it's cooked and you serve it, it's more neater.
So Sharon Fossa, she's a former reporter and anchor, television anchor, turned author, turned poet, turned perfume entrepreneur. She was born in Tehran, raised in Brooklyn, New York. Her family returned to Iran when she was a teenager, exposing basically someone who grew up in the United States of America back to Iran and Iranian culture. And she has written in her new memoir, Shaming My Red Lips, all about her experiences.
All of my family, they're very proud Iranians.
What were some of the complications? And I assume you wrote about this all in your book, Shaming My Red Lips.
I think the whole education part of it and the whole culture, religious part of it. And Arabic is the second language in Iran. I had no understanding of either of these. So I slowly learned Arabic because it's part of the entry exam to the university. And then the second thing was the religious and cultural part, how everything is so intertwined together that I can't be myself without being a very good Islamic female.
Ney Collado Lainez is a U.S.-based Salvadoran immigrant and the author of 12 children's books with a unique perspective. He's writing about children in the immigration system and their interactions with the immigration service. You were born in El Salvador, and I understand you came here as a 14-year-old. Were you scared doing that?
Yeah, especially the last part, coming to the United States and crossing the mountains. That was really scary because I was not expecting that.
So what inspired you now to start writing children's books about children going through the immigration process?
Yeah, I am also an elementary teacher, and all my students are from Latin America, and most of their parents are immigrants. Most of the children also are immigrants. Some were born here in the United States, but still they had that feeling of separation, that feeling of they feel that something bad can happen to their parents. And also, I am an immigrant myself, so writing about immigrant children, I also writing about my own experience.
Essence Moore, she's a teen author whose work is now mandatory reading for several school districts in New Jersey and Brooklyn. Her series, The Middle School Chronicles, takes readers on a journey through the roller coaster ride of middle school. When did you start writing these books? Did you write them in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade?
I did. I wrote them at the time of the school year. So 6th grade, I was working on 6th grade. 7th grade, I was working on 7th grade. So I was really just documenting, in a sense, just journaling down what was going on at the time. So really the books are a series of just events that either affected me or the people close to me or just my town. And in terms of a protagonist and antagonist, I think we all have a different side to us. We have our good side, we have our bad side, and I kind of capture everybody's entire being in the book. So I tell you their negatives and their positives.
Today, I'm with Hector Rodriguez, an educator, artist, and 10th generation Texan. His comic book series, El Peso Hero, tells the story of a rogue Mexican-American superhero who stands up against cartels, corrupt officials, and human traffickers at the U.S.-Mexico border. In the latest edition, El Peso Hero travels to Ukraine to search for a missing Mexican Red Cross member and to protect refugees in the midst of the Russian invasion.
We felt it was important to take a global stance against the current situation in Ukraine. This extreme violence, war, I felt that I need to take a stance against war. I felt that as a Latino superheroes that we do need to go on to the global stage, that if Superman and Spider-Man are jumping around the world saving different folks, I think that we as Latinos, as minorities with superheroes, that we do have the right to stand up for other people, not just our own. That's why it's free. And my only caveat is to, if you have the funds, to donate to UNICEF for their own donations for helping children in Ukraine, refugees in Ukraine that are affected by this ongoing invasion.
Ilya Soman is a professor of law at George Mason University. an author and a blogger for the Bolick Conspiracy on the Reason Magazine website, with his interests including democracy, immigration federalism, and property rights. Now, you wrote a few books, but your most recent one, Free to Move, Foot Voting, Migration, and Political Freedom. What's that all about?
It's about voting with your feet in 3 different kinds of ways. Through international migration, the way most Americans or their ancestors came to this country, in a federal system, like when you choose which state or local government you want to live in, and finally in the private sector, like for example, people who choose between different private planned communities, such as condos or homeowners associations. In the book, I argue that all 3 of these different types of foot voting should be expanded in various ways because they expand people's political freedom, but also expand freedom in various other ways and have the potential to enormously increase human well-being, especially for the poor and disadvantaged.
Thanks for watching. For more Bradshaw Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.